How we doing? How we doing? This is Destination Denver, Colorado, and I got a tongue tire for you today. How are interest rates and inflation affecting the Denver housing market? And my predictions for 2023, we're covering them starting right now. All right, this is Destination Denver, Colorado. I'm your host, Jimmy Evertson. Listen, if you're interested in learning all the ins and outs, pros and cons to moving to or around Denver, Colorado, then this is a channel for you. So that subscribe button and notification icon popping up on your screen, make sure you click on that as I'm dropping new videos for you each and every week. And listen, as much as I try to be a little creative here on camera, I'm also a licensed mortgage broker covering the entire state of Colorado and team with some of Denver's most talented realtors. So the number and email popping up on your screen, know that I am always the person answering your phone calls, answering your texts, answering your emails, there when and if you need me. Now that we're done with that fun-filled stuff, let's get to what we're here for, and that is how are interest rates and inflation affecting the Denver housing market, and what are my predictions for 2023? All right, so we can't get into 2023 without doing a quick review of 2022. So early on in the year, it's January, it's February, interest rates are still historically low. You hear that term all the time. They're still sitting on average in the low threes, and houses are selling like hotcakes. The problem is there's not very many hotcakes. So sellers are putting their house on the market. Dozens, and I'm not exaggerating, dozens of buyers are putting in offers on houses. They're going $25, $50, $100, $200,000 over the list price of the home. It is a bloodbath, and winners are by far the highest bidder. They have a ton of cash, and the losers are people with 5, 10, maybe 15% down who can't extend that far over list price in pure cash to make up the difference. Now, as this is all happening and the world is still recovering from what happened in 2020 and 2021, we start to see supply chains shrink up. All of a sudden, we're seeing inflation skyrocket as people like you and me, we're just spending money left and right. We're getting on Amazon, ordering all the stuff we like, and prices just keep jumping. We see, not that we can order on Amazon, but we see gas prices going up. We see utilities going up. We see groceries going up. And little by little, our dollar is going far less and less far. So throw on their cape, and here comes the Federal Reserve. And they start increasing short-term interest rates in the spring of 2022. Now, short-term interest rates, as mortgage guys like myself like to tell everybody, and nobody tends to listen, but short-term interest rates do not have an impact directly on mortgage interest rates. The Fed does not control mortgages, but the Fed does control how much interest you pay on your credit card. They control how much interest one bank pays to another bank for money they borrow from each other. So the Fed, seeing that inflation was becoming a significant problem, they start to raise that short-term interest rate, because that is the one and only way that they can attack inflation. So as inflation continues to just get out of control, inflation, that's all we're hearing. Well, inflation does a terrible job of supporting mortgage rates. In fact, inflation is, the worst thing that can happen to bonds and less mortgage-backed securities. So mortgage interest rates start to rise, and they go from those historical lows in the low threes to, as high as we were seeing rates at certain points in the mid sevens to high sevens. So on the buy side, these buyers who were used to seeing 3.5% rates, all of a sudden they're seeing 5s, then 6s, then 7s. So they start to say, oh, hold on. I'm not buying a house with a 7% interest rate. And so they stop looking at houses. Well, Mr. Seller still wants to sell their house, but nobody's coming to buy it. So their house, for the first time in years, their house sits on the market 1 weekend, 2 weekends, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. On and on it goes, to where all of a sudden sellers have to do something they have not done in, again, years. They have to potentially reduce their price, and they have to start negotiating with buyers on the sale of their home. Whereas before, heck, I told you earlier in 2022, it was take it or leave it. Now it is, please come take it. What do I need to give you in order for you to take this house off my hands? So as this occurred, come summertime, early fall, we start to see home prices, at least here in Denver and for most of the nation, they started to level off. We had seen this gross appreciation, 10, 12, 14+% appreciation in these homes. What started to level out? Homes started to stay at the same price point. Again, we started to see reductions in home sale prices. We started seeing sellers work with buyers to give them what we call seller concessions to help them buy the house. Was that the cap of it? No. The Fed continued to raise that short-term interest rate. They increased it for the most part multiple times this year by 0.75 percentage point. All of this in an attempt to battle inflation. That's why every time you went to the grocery store, you filled up your cart about halfway and it was $300. Every time you went to the gas station to fill up your gas tank, it was $100. The cost of goods was out of control, and everything the Fed was doing was in an attempt to squash that issue. So as we end 2022 and getting into 2023, where do we stand now? Well, during the most recent Fed Reserve conversation, they raised the short-term interest rate by 0.5%. Now remember, they had raised the interest rate multiple times this year by 0.75 percentage point, but the last couple meetings, they had only raised it by 0.5%. This is a signal from the Federal Reserve that we have seen a peak in inflation. At least that is their assumption. Now, they also signaled that they are going to keep those rates up or higher for a period of time. So we might see more increases by 0.5% on that short-term rate because we're not out of the woods as far as inflation, but it was a very good signal that we have seen the worst of it. So what does that mean for us in 2023? Well, more than likely it means that interest rates will remain in the 6s, perhaps dipping into the 5s. There's been some talk that we'll see 5s, but the likelihood of them going below 5 are very low. More than likely, that would take one of two things. It would take a significant recession, or what we like to call a black swan event. The kind of stuff you don't want to have happen. I don't know, like quarantines where we all get locked in our house, or Ukraine and Russia go crazy, like things that we don't want for the sake of interest rates. So we can anticipate that through 2023, we should see interest rates, they're sitting around the mid 6s at the moment. We should see, we've got pretty good information, those should come back into the 5s. But whether they get into the low 5s or lower or not is extremely debatable. On the housing market, that means that more buyers have to consider whether or not they can afford the payment of a house based on that higher interest rate. On the seller side, it means that they can't go hog wild just expecting their house to sell at any price point. It means that what we have seen for the last several months, homes remaining on the market longer than they have in years, sellers giving those concessions, giving money back to the buyers to help the buyer either pay for closing costs or to help them buy their interest rate down, will continue. That means that while it is not a buyer's market by definition terms, it is as close to a buyer's market as we have seen since perhaps right after the crash. Now, what buyers need to understand is this, because right now you have a lot of people who are thinking, well, hey, I'm just gonna hang tight. Home prices have leveled, they might drop more. I'm just gonna wait while home prices are lower. I'm gonna hang tight, wait for interest rates to come down, and then I'll buy my house. Well, this is the problem in that. One, housing supplies are not going to improve by any standards. If you have more homes being sold, that means builders can't keep up with demand. If you have fewer homes being sold, that means builders making the decision to not build as fast. They will take a pause on construction at times, and we've seen that this year. We've seen builders decide to slow down production because at the end of the day, they don't want to build a bunch of houses that they can't sell. So one way or another, housing supply is going to remain limited at scale. So for buyers who think that they're going to hang tight, they think that they are going to wait for interest rates to lower so that they could buy that house. Well, when interest rates lower, they're not the only buyer that's thinking that. You have a variety, you have a plethora, perhaps, of piñatas, a plethora of people who are considering doing the same thing. So interest rates come down. Let's say interest rates come down into the 4s. The market, my prediction at least, would be the market would go hog wild again. You'd have multiple buyers on every single property, overbidding, and we would be in many ways right back where we started. The healthiest place for this market is just a slightly lower interest rate than where we are right now. A market in which rates sit in the high 5s to low 6s, where it provides buyers enough affordability to where they can afford to qualify for a mortgage on the house they're trying to buy. They can get a bit of help from sellers to help buy that interest rate down, whether it's permanently or temporarily, to give them some benefit. And then once they are owners at that point, they can hang tight, wait for the market to drop lower, and then get that refinance. I would emphasize, anytime you hear the term refinance, be prepared to be in that higher rate loan for the foreseeable future, because there's no guarantee that rates are going to drop into the 4s or even, or possibly the 3s anytime soon. And I think we have to remember that 2020 and 2021 were extreme anomalies. It's not every day, hopefully, that people are locked in their house for months at a time. It's not every day that people are but people are buying homes sight unseen. It's not every day that dozens of people are making an offer on the same house. 2020 and 2021 really ripped out a lot of the tendencies and habits of the real estate market. One of those being seasonality. The idea that people tended to buy homes more often during certain periods of time than they did others. In 2020 and 2021, seasonality was moot. People were buying houses year round. In 2022, we saw a bit more of that. We saw a lull in the summer. We saw the 4th quarter, the winter months, start to slow down. We anticipate that in 2023, in spring, you'll see that increase as you used to. So I think we'll see more of that seasonality come back, and some of the characteristics of the real estate market that we could count on beginning to reemerge. And let's face it, it is at least likely that home sales will slide for the 2nd straight year. Coming from the bananas market of 2020 and 2021, in which any home that hit the market sold and sold fast, to a market that just saw a bit of a breath in 2022, I think that people are still reacting. They're still reactionary, if you will. And so in 2023, we can expect, if interest rates remain where they are, if they start to drop, you might see a slight increase. But if interest rates stay where they are, or heaven forbid, if they go up a bit, you should certainly see a dip in home sales. So what am I telling people that want to buy a house and their goal is to buy a house in 2023? Well, here's the bottom line. When you're buying a house, you're not timing the market. There is no timing. You're not buying a stock from Starbucks or from Citgo. You're buying a house. It's all about your timing. So it's all about making sure your plan is in place. Remembering that the sellers, at the end of the day, they have the house. The house is what you want. So being strategic about the offer you're making and the home you want to target. Keeping in mind that if interest rates go up, your affordability goes down. But if interest rates go down, that could mean more competition for you. So what does going up versus going down mean to you as the individual? And as I will always emphasize, no matter what you see, no matter what some mortgage people will tell you, and if I hear one more person say, marry the house, date the rate, I'm gonna fucking chuck a computer at them or something heavy. The fact is, you need to be prepared for the highest payment your mortgage could potentially have. What I mean by that is if you're doing some type of temporary buy down, if you're doing a buy down permanent, whatever that case is, what is the highest payment you could possibly have? If it's on an adjustable rate mortgage, whatever, what's the highest payment? Can you live with that payment, and can you live with it for the foreseeable future? Because if interest rates don't lower, that's where you are. If they do, you're in better shape, but always be prepared for the worst. Overall, I'll tell you, I'm very excited about 2023. I think what has happened in 2022 was very healthy for the real estate market. I don't think people enjoyed it at the time, because at the end of the day, a 3% interest rate sounds pretty sweet. But if it's a 3% interest rate on a house that you can never buy, what good is it? But I'm open for the debate, so feel free. Hit me up, that phone number, that email popping up on your screen. I'm always the person answering your phone calls, answering your texts, answering your email, there when any of you need me. This is Destination Denver, Colorado. I am your host, Jimmy Everts. That was how are high interest rates and inflation affecting the Denver housing market and my predictions for 2023. Until I see you next time, peace.